I didn't like the way he obviously lifted the microphone there. I'm not that much taller. So, Attorney General Githu Muigai, Chairman of the MOA, Mr. Sam Chalet, Chairman of the Media Council of Kenya, Mr. Peter Wakoli, and CEO of the Media Council of Kenya, Mr. Haran Wangai. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm generally a little bit nervous about Amani standing in the corner because I threatened that I can either do a short speech or I can do a Kenyan speech, which is the point at which he starts to edge up towards the stage. So I'd really like to congratulate the Media Council of Kenya for successfully organizing and hosting these awards for the third year running. Much would have been said over the past day or so about the central role that journalism plays in support of democracy. Knowledge is power, and no one does more than the media to ensure that we have an informed and therefore an empowered society. It was James Madison who said, "The advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian to true liberty." Now yesterday, His Excellency the President looked at me in the holding room and said, "What are you doing here?" It was a reasonable question. What role does a vendor of airtime have in a symposium of media freedom and journalism excellence? Now a couple of years ago, at Safaricom, we went about redefining ourselves, and we concluded that we could no longer define our purpose as that of delivering superior returns for our shareholders. Rather, we said we wanted to play a role in transforming the lives of Kenyans. And in order to do so, we had to redefine the relationship that we had with some critical stakeholders. Now, in addition to the conventional stakeholders, like customers, shareholders, staff, business partners, etc., we also identified the media as a critical stakeholder. We recognized at the time the critical role that media plays in informing our 600,000 shareholders, our 20 million or so customers, government and regulators, and indeed society at large. We recognize that we therefore needed not only to be honest, transparent, and timely with the media, but we also had a critical role to play in educating the media about our industry. And that is why for the past couple of years, we've been running half-day workshops to help young journalists understand some of the more esoteric elements of our industry. Now, I believe this has resulted in a much more analytical, in-depth, and informed quality of reporting on matters affecting our sector over the past few years. And that is why we are in the process, ladies and gentlemen, of rolling out one of the most comprehensive journalism fellowship programs in East Africa in partnership with Strathmore University. We will engage you from the outset to ensure that the program meets the expectations of building capacity and improving the quality of journalism in Kenya. The role to proactively inform the citizenry should not be left to journalists alone. It is incumbent upon corporate institutions to take a proactive role in empowering a nation through the facilitation of the free flow of information. I would therefore urge other corporates to support journalism profession through meaningful partnerships that foster a candid conversation about the state of their industry and that of the nation. With focused training programs and capacity building initiatives, a collective effort can go a long way in raising the bar for a society to candidly engage in open conversations about the future. Ladies and gentlemen, at this awards dinner here tonight, we have the creme de la creme of your profession. You're at the top of your game. And it's when you're at the top of the game, that's when you have a role to play in lifting the game of those who haven't yet made it to this room. Now, we're still disappointed at the number of times a story only makes the editor's desk if a little transport money is paid. We're still dismayed at the lack of research we see in some stories that don't make it, that do actually make it to the news desk. And we're still disheartened when a story is coerced off the news desk by a large advertiser or other influential player. Ladies and gentlemen, the world has more stories than the latest shenanigans of Cord or Jubilee. Now, of course, we need to hear about scandals and injustices in our country, and indeed on our continent. But we also need to hear the biggest stories. Our citizens need to hear what is going on in the rest of the world. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to encourage your younger and less experienced colleagues to explore that world. It was American humorist and author Will Rogers who said, "All I know is what I read in the papers, and that's an alibi for my ignorance." It's the responsibility of every individual journalist to act prudently and with a sense of duty towards society and towards the nation. The work must signify a belief in principles, exhorted by democracy and made concrete in every story that's published or broadcast. Facts and information are sacred and must be portrayed as objectively as possible. It's upon this principle that responsible journalism thrives. Responsible and independent journalism is the bulwark of free society. That's the reason your role is designated as the fourth estate, or indeed the fourth branch of government.
What this evening is going to be. After which, we will invite the chairman of the Media Council of Kenya, Mr. Peter Wakoli. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Professor Levy of Bonyo.
The Honorable Attorney General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the awards have grown phenomenally, just as the CEO of the Media Council has mentioned, and from what they started 3 years ago. We started, as he said, with just about 600 entries. Since then, the entries have doubled, and indications are that that's the trajectory that they're going to take, an upward one. Today, we are gathered to honor our men and women who labor day after day and night after night to bring to us the stories that we see on our televisions, we hear on the radio, that we read in the newspapers in the morning. And I think it's proper to say that we gathered here to thank you for the hard job that you do. We notice trends that we would love to point out here as the judges who looked at the stories. This is by all means one of the occasions when peers come together to appreciate the works of their colleagues. These awards are getting increasingly competitive. We would urge editors to help their journalists submit their most serious work in order to stand a good chance at winning. There are also limited entries from upcountry stations, and we would be interested in urging radio stations that are in the countryside to seek to increase the number of entries that they submit for the awards. We would love to see colleagues from the countryside, those who are broadcasting in vernacular languages, if those could be translated into Swahili or English and be brought over to the council. I know that over the last while, you have had journalists, you have had stories about the shortcomings, the challenges that you face every day, the questions of ethics, and the questions of professionalism. We do not intend to visit those areas today, and our focus has been to look at what you have done well and where you have excelled. We are confident as we do this. And looking over the last 2 or 3 years, there are certain trends that we see which we really appreciate. The entries in the business area, in the health area, in the environment area were particularly indicated particularly marked improvement over the previous years. And we think that there's some good job that is taking place here. Is there room for improvement? Certainly. But it's obvious that you are making some effort. We are confident that the winners we present to you tonight are the stars in the profession. These are decisions that took the panel of judges many hours and days, and I want to thank them all. Nancy Buka, our Deputy Chair, your years of service to this field served as well. The grand old man of Kenyan journalism, Joe Kadhi, needs no introduction. He labored for many years on Tomboya Street, contributing to what the nation newspapers are today. Jared Obuya is an old hand at serving, even if now his time is spent at Moi University. Edwin Nyudo has graced many of our stages, and your booming voice is a great signature of wonderful talent. Joseph Nyanyoti is still missed at Nation House, where he landed after cutting his teeth at Kenya Times. Christine Guku, we still remember your fresh face that lightened our screens not too long ago. Zipporah Musau, thanks for your grace honed last at the Standard Group. And John Gashir brought experience of many years at the foreign desk to bear on this work. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel of judges, thank you. And I will not finish without thanking Ruth Kwamboka, the embodiment of energy. Njeri, the young girl who kept our time busy. You have many years of service ahead of you, and the council will be the better for it. Ladies and gentlemen, our colleague journalist, this is your night. Enjoy it.
Another round of applause to and of course, first give a round of applause for every lady and every gentleman who adhered to the code of black tie. Makofi tafadhali. But I must say that the attire that the Professor Levi Obonyo is wearing is quite profound. Of course, we expect nothing less from people of the Lake region. I do not mean to play on stereotypes, but I'm not even surprised that this wonderful panel of judges was led by a man from the lakeside. I am told that it is only that part of this country that has the biggest number of intelligent people per square kilometer. And of course, they're acknowledging, and of course, as if to agree, our former Prime Minister is where? Studying. Studying. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to all our brothers and sisters from that side of our country, the lakeside. And thank you very much for being very well spoken and for the wonderful words you said, sir. And now it is my honor to welcome Mr. Peter Wakoli, the chairman of the Media Council of Kenya, to come and make his remarks. And not just that, sir, I'll be asking you to invite our chief guest after that to come and make his remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Mr. Peter Wakoli.
Ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest, Honorable Professor Githu Muigai, our sponsors, council members, the complaints commissioners, the delegates, both local and foreign, the Media Council of Kenya staff, all protocols observed. Welcome to this peak of events that began yesterday. We are here this hour to celebrate journalism as a profession and not as a career. These sentiments reflect discussions you've been going through for the last one day, where we had issues of people raising submissions like Facebook journalists against professional journalists. We're talking about a clear distinction between these two because this industry is an industry of persons who understand their noble social responsibilities. Listening to the discussions for the last one day, ladies and gentlemen, it reminds me of the proverbial story told in my homeland about the flying termite, which is a delicacy in some parts of this country. The story goes, this flying termite cried out, underground is in danger because the moles were reaching out for it. Overground, it was in danger because frogs and human beings were extending to catch it. Airborne, it was in danger because the birds of the air were also flying to catch it. These three environments represent the difficulties that journalists go through. Their profession is navigated by persons, by our media outlets, where they serve. There are challenges there. We were able to candidly discuss and confirm that the shuttle between preparing content in various formats for television, for radio, and now for blogs. And these calls for immense skill, knowledge, and tools. We're also able to confirm there were serious challenges relating to welfare issues. I hope Media Council and people present here today will be able to begin to address some of these issues which are welfare related. Other issues we're able to observe include issues of technology. It turns out that technology has changed how media houses today compete. A few years ago, competition was based on which house breaks the news first. Today, that competition is not sustainable because if you compete, you won't win. Twitter shall. You also do remember, therefore, that we need to move forwards and change the context of our competition by moving away from competing to be the first persons to break news, beginning to observe two important elements. These are elements of exclusivity and the context. These two will be able to transform our social mission of moving away from the position of East and West journalists to a position where we provide emphasis to significance of stories we tell, where we provide emphasis to the human angle because what we do, as it was emphasized towards the very end of today, we are in the service of the public. Your work obviously will be able to move this country and your countries, including your counties today, into a coveted position of what we consider as knowledge-based society. This is what's going to transform lives. We're hoping that we will be able to grow in this direction and be able to support our counties wherever we're coming from. I want to mention that as we move forwards as a Media Council, we will be providing emphasis on issues of challenges raised in the forum which began yesterday. We shall be providing emphasis on matters of capacity building, and more importantly, we shall be providing emphasis on issues that can facilitate more efficient delivery of your service. We count on you as we move forward as a society. Ladies and gentlemen, the hour has come. I persuade each one of you to be in an upstanding position because I'd like to welcome our chief guest, Professor Githu Muigai.